This is the sanctuary or temple at Camp Etna, which is the Camp Etna Spiritualist Camp in Etna, Maine. All of the interviews that we will be doing today are the individuals' perceptions that we are talking to, and not necessarily affiliated with any spiritualist camp or any other religious or spiritual tradition. Hi there. You're here with Eddita and we are at Camp Etna, and we are doing a film today on signs from our loved ones. This film is about with real people who have experienced signs from their loved ones who have passed on to the other side. And I'm going to start this film today with Diane Jackman's Schofield.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Diane has written a book about her experiences with her third husband, who is now in spirit, since he has passed. This book is called 9 Months Ago Was Yesterday. And I asked Diane if she would talk with us today about her experiences with talking to spirit, both with Diane's third husband and with other folks around her in spirit that send her signs. And Diane, we're here at a very special place to you. And would you mind talking about the setting?
The setting here, when I started to walk over to the garden and saw you were setting up in front of it, Bethany said that you loved my flowers, and I said it's perfect because that's the first garden that I planted here. My grandmother passed in 2008, and I grew up from the time I was 3 years old. I was in the garden with her. Mm-hmm. So for me to put the garden here, this was the first one, and you picked here.
Yes. So you call this your grandmother's garden?
My grandmother's garden, because everybody that I've spoken to can say the same thing. They had a garden, their grandmother had a garden as well. So
with
my
them.
Grandmother's garden, yes.
So would you mind telling us about perhaps some signs that you've had from your grandmother since she passed?
Oh, well, like I say, anytime I'm working in the dirt, I can hear her saying something like, be careful up there. The only time I ever got in trouble was when I got up on the kitchen cabinets to get to, if I'm on a ladder, I can hear her say, be careful up there. And, just the kind of things that grandmothers did. I used to cook a lot with my grandmother. When you get signs, I believe if you're open to them, they'll come. Mm-hmm. It'll be, very subtle. And if you're not open to them, you won't even notice them.
So let me ask you, an experience I had with my grandmother, who's also in spirit. I was working on a recipe, and I was having a very difficult time with doing baking. I hadn't baked in a long time, and I had left out a very important ingredient. And I couldn't figure out why the recipe that I was working on was so thick. And it was supposed to be a cake mix, and it was stiff enough that when I let go of the bowl, cake mix stuff went everywhere within a 5-foot radius. And I said, oh my God, what am I doing here? How did this happen? And I heard my grandmother say, you left out the water.
Absolutely, yeah.
So those kinds of
hear
things
it very
happen to
clearly,
you.
yes, very clearly, very clearly.
And does she ever send you visible signs?
When we did a table tipping here at Camp Etna, she came through very strongly there, so I guess that would be a very visible sign. Mm-hmm. My grandmother was of the old school and not much into signs. I mean, it's kind of difficult for me to pick out, unlike the other people that come through with such strong signs.
So your communications with her tend to be pretty practical and down to earth?
Yes, yeah.
But your communications with other people that have been passed who send you signs, their signs are different?
There's
like these.
Most noticeable, yes.
Would you mind talking about that?
Okay, well, this picture here was taken on July 19th, which would have been his first birthday after his passing. This butterfly, literally, if you've ever tried to take a picture of a butterfly, they never stay still. I was able to take at least 20 pictures of this butterfly before he finally took off. I'd made plans to go to a rock shop and build a crystal castle.
That day?
That day, because I knew after a loved one passes, their birthdays, your anniversaries. Those are times when you want to reach out into the world to start your new life, because especially when a spouse dies,
Yes.
you know, it's not just the spouse, it's the relationship, and you start from scratch.
Right.
Yeah, so get out there and do stuff. And
So you made plans to go to a rock show.
And we had a wonderful day. That day I actually didn't talk at all about my husband's passing.
Whose name was Red.
Fiddlin' Red Seidman. He was a very famous musician. He's coming through here, excuse me. Very famous musician back in the early 70s, a hot walker band in southern Florida, toured with the Captain and Tennille, George Jones. He was a fiddle player that won a fiddle contest 7 years in a row for Florida.
Wow.
So he was an amazing, the best entertainer I've ever seen.
Right.
Yeah. Comes through very strongly through the mediums. Actually, he brought me to spiritualism. After he passed, the night before his service, I asked for a sign, and the hair.
And who did you ask for?
I asked the universe for a sign, and I know from my practices, I've been Buddhist and Taoist, and I've studied many different traditions.
And you are an intuitive healer and an empowerment coach?
I guess I would call myself an intuitive wellness coach.
Thank you.
Because when I sit and talk with you, I'm going to feel different things and see different things and hear different things that may be able to help you.
Right.
And that's how I help people. I also teach many different traditions. A Jin Shin Jitsu tradition of just breathing deeply and holding on to each one of your digit has helped more elderly people in any of my classes than you can imagine. But simple things like that.
Okay. So the night before he died, or before the service?
The night before the service.
You asked for a sign.
I got up, actually, I went to sleep asking for a sign. And then I got up in the morning and I waited for my sign. I didn't have a dream that night. The morning sign, the heron, which of course is the animal totem for self-realization, flew right across the sunrise.
A blue heron?
A blue heron flew right
Wow.
across the sunrise. And I thought, well, that's beautiful, and thank you very much for the sign. I know he's okay. We went to the service that day. We were standing in a parking lot in the middle of Cross City, Florida, and I had told my friends this story. And as we all broke to walk away, my son said, "Mom, look," and there was a heron landing on the telephone wires above my head.
Oh, my.
And, I mean, herons landing on, it was like one of these things.
So you had two heron signs within
so
24 hours.
Yeah, and then later that day, I actually, driving down the road, was witness, and I didn't know it at the time, a young man had died in a bicycle accident, and he had a heron circling over his body.
Where he had
passed.
died in the accident, yes.
Where actually the ambulance was still there.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so it was, the signs
Three
when they
in one
came, you know, 3 in one day, that was very strong. I mean, the night after his service, when I went to turn out my light, my sister was standing in the doorway, and the power shut off in the whole house. And I pulled my hand back, and the power turned back on in the house. And I looked at her, and I put my hand up again, and I did this 3 times, and each time I reached for it, the power would shut off.
Wow.
My son yelled from the living room, "I don't know what you're doing, Mom, but you need to stop it. I'm trying to watch the game here." So I stopped, and I went out and cried with my son. And he said, "Well, you know, Red's just here telling you he's okay."
Yes.
And from that moment on, I felt so blessed with every sign that I got.
Yes. And so I'm going to ask you, the book is called 9 Months Ago Was Yesterday by Diane Jackman Schofield, and the press is
CHB Media.
CHB Media in Florida.
Yeah, they're a spiritual publishing company.
And they are a spiritual publishing company. So this is a book that you want to check out, folks. And thank you for talking with us about the signs from your grandmother and the signs from your deceased husband, as opposed to the one you have right now. Red, Fiddling Red.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was an honor to talk with you. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.